Alright, hey, welcome to Operation End Times. I'm Ben Hellstead, your Jedi Warrior for Jesus. This is the Two-Faced God series, Part 3, the Battle of Evermore. Forevermore. Part B, however you want to look at it. Alright, so what we were talking about as we finished off the Battle of Evermore Part 1 is that Dan, for some reason, didn't get their inheritance, so they went to a temple that was this mighty man named Micah, which means who is like God. So was this that two-faced God right in here? But Micah had gotten a Levite who was from the tribe of Judah to be his priest, and when I do believe it was 400 mighty men of Dan marched his way and had 5 warriors. Either way, they consulted this temple and this priest, and they actually told the priest to come with them, to be their priest, to go on up to the city of Dan, which he did. But they went up there and they killed everybody, and they said that the town of Laish, it was like the people were just easygoing, friendly, and didn't seem to have any defenses, and it would be easy to wipe them all out. So what Dan did wasn't necessarily a good thing. That was one of the more darker things, but they had been kind of misled by Judah. And Judah has this weird relationship with Dan because, you know, in the book of Judges, it is Judah, 3,000 men from the tribe of Judah, that bind up Samson and deliver him back into the Philistines. So, you know, between all the tribes of Israel, they weren't really that nice to each other. You know, that's how Joseph, the story of Joseph began, which is where his 10 brothers, you know, got jealous of him because he had the multicolored coat, so they sold him into slavery down into Egypt. But, see, that is the mystery of God, the will of God, the plan of God, that it always defeats the plans of men, the handiworks of men, or the darker plans of principalities and higher places. But the mystery of God, the amazement of God, is always 180 degrees out of what the mind of man would think. And that's why, like, everybody thought the Messiah was coming as a mighty man, the king of the earth, and Jesus came as a servant. But likewise, you know, whenever things go south, like a brother sold into slavery, which is darkness for sure, out of it came some goodness, because Joseph, you know, when the famine hit and money failed, the economic system collapsed, he was able to keep his house, his family, and his brothers alive through the position he had obtained in the Pharaoh's kingdom. Kind of like Daniel as well. He was another brother that rose to power within the Babylonian power structure, and therefore light was able to come out of darkness as Daniel could do things to benefit the will of God. So, these battles of Evermore, like the Battle of Armageddon, they talk about Gog and Magog. These are all these kings that Joshua fought when he came into the came across the Jordan over here by the Dead Sea. Let's see if I can get the map in here. You know, Joshua kind of came up over this way, I think it was, and you know, there's been just war after war after war, either between the tribes themselves, because that's what kind of happened here. Is Dan not only consulted this temple in here, but there's another story of another guy who was traveling, and he was right in this area here, and he had a concubine, but he decided not to stay right here, so he somehow kind of crossed over into this area of Gibeah. And the reason why that's important, because Genesis 14, that Battle of Evermore, I would call it the Battle of the Valley of Siddim, the lowlands. But if we were to go to Hosea 10, Hosea 10 is talking about another battle of Evermore, but basically it says, Hosea chapter 10 verse 9, it says, O Israel, thou hast sinned from the days of Gibeah. And Gibeah is right down in this area somewhere. There they stood, the battle in Gibeah against the children of iniquity did not overtake them. And I'm telling you, I think that's the battle that unfolds several times in the book of Judges. But basically, there was this guy traveling, and he decided to kind of go through this area, and he stayed at Gibeah. And who was living at Gibeah was the tribe of Benjamin. But it was just this horrible stuff that his concubine got raped and plundered and died in the morning at this guy's doorstep in Gibeah. So then he basically chopped up his concubine wife and sent pieces of her to all the other tribes, and they all rallied to fight Gibeah, and they ended up fighting against Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, and they basically did genocide. They were just about to make Benjamin extinct, cut them off, so they wouldn't even have been in Revelations 7, because there would be no tribe of Benjamin. But they kind of stopped, and right as they got Benjamin down to their last few guys, they said, well, we better find some wives, take some wives for Benjamin. And then it's this weird thing where they get 400 virgins are up here at Shiloh dancing in a festival, and the sons of Benjamin kind of take them in a dark, evil way so that their seed line can continue. But what I would tell you is we're going to get back to the virgins, because there's something going on here between this mountain, the city of Dan, virgins, and taking virgins, and we're going to get a little deeper into that, because there's a twisted thing about what goes on with virgins, but then there is a divine picture of what's going on with virgins. But let's go back to the original virgin, which was Eve, the ewe that the Lord gave to Adam. He said, here's a woman for you. She was the one in the garden when the serpent, Dan as a serpent, showed up and tricked her, but she saw that the tree was good, it was pleasant, it was good looking, and to make her wise. And if you look at that word wise in the Bible, it's the word shakah, and everywhere it's used, it's pretty much a positive thing. It's the Hebrew word 79:19, to understand, to prosper, to be prudent. So it seemed like she wanted to do a good thing, but it manifested as going against the will of God, because what it was is she wasn't letting God, the Spirit of God, dish out the knowledge. She was just eating it for herself, and that's kind of been what's been going on with mankind, because the curse where it says Adam's going to have to till the soil in sorrow, all that is talking about, hey man, you're going to have to eat of it, the tree of knowledge, because we had already eaten of it. So guess what? We're still eating it, but it bears forth in sorrow that we keep screwing everything up, because the truth is there's only one way to go forward in wisdom and knowledge, and that's with God guiding you in it, and that's what we have not been doing. But Hosea 10 is really, really interesting, because it talks about the battle in Gibeah. I do believe that is a battle that was all the tribes of Israel fighting against their own brethren, Benjamin. But that's why it's not unusual to find Dan and Judah kind of fighting each other and teaming up at times, But in Hosea, there's a verse where it says, Hosea 10:11, it says, and Ephraim is a heifer, a cow that is taught. Here we go. People are cattle. You're teaching them to love to tread out the corn. But I passed over upon her fair neck. I will make Ephraim to ride, Judah to plow, and Jacob shall break his clods. Sow to yourselves in righteousness, reap in mercy, break up your fallow ground, for it is time to seek the Lord till he come and rain righteousness upon you. So there's a positive reflection on both Ephraim, Judah, and Jacob, regardless of who's getting sealed in Revelations 7, because Ephraim isn't listed, but here it's saying Ephraim, is going to be made to ride, So in other words, they're going to be bridled, which is a good thing. But what it tells us is that before this good thing happens, Hosea 10:12, and there's that 12. The 12 times 12 is 144. It says, well, actually, that's about the righteousness, the completion of righteousness. But if we go to Hosea 10:13, it says, you have plowed wickedness, you have reaped iniquity, you have eaten the fruit of lies, because thou did trust in thy way and in the multitude of mighty men. And there you have it, my friends. Thy way, that's what Ephraim represents. Carnality, materialism, false religion, and mighty men, the tribe of Dan. That is who Ephraim, Judah, and Jacob put their trust in, as far as a dark shadow. And even Dan, because Dan's, if you study Dan from beginning to end, Dan, the mighty man, is pride and ego. Therefore, hey, Lucifer, Satan, man, woman, I think there's both forms here, just like with good people, with those of us that walk in the light, there's both men and women. So I don't know whether Lucifer's the woman, Satan's the man, but there's a king and there's a dark queen there. But Hosea 10:13, you have plowed wickedness, and it's talking about Ephraim, Judah, and Jacob, even though in verse 12 it was talking about them plowing righteousness, turning it around. But Hosea 10:14, here it is, synchronizing to 2014. Therefore, shalt a tumult arise amongst thy people, and all thy fortresses shall be spoiled, as Shalman spoiled Betharbel in the day of the battle of Evermore, my friends. The mother was dashed in pieces upon her children, and the mother is the mother goddess, man, because that is the false religion, is the mother god, which was what Dan was worshiping at one point. But I think Dan threw off the shackles, at least a lot of Dan or the Vikings, because one of the signs of throwing off the shackles is throwing off the squares and the triangles, the pillars, the false houses and the pyramids of power, all the shadowy stuff, throwing it off. The two-faced God, the false trinities, the mother goddess, the idols, the graven images, the false concepts of fear, projecting the mother as goddess, which kind of sounds good at times because mothers are wonderful. But Jesus clearly said God the Father. So, there's truth and then there's shadow and falseness. But a tumult shall arise. A tumult means the sons of noise, to roar, shaon, shah, noise, Dan is a lion. It's Dan rising. That's the prophecy that out of the north Dan shall rise. But a tumult shall arise amongst thy people, just as Shalman was the king of Syria who came down and spoiled Betharbel. Now Betharbel, I'm thinking, is a town, somewhere in here somewhere. It doesn't much matter. It's what it actually means, because Arbel means the house of God's ambush. So somebody got ambushed. Samson got ambushed when Judah tied him up and sent him into the Philistines. But it comes from the root Hebrew word 1004, Hebrews 695, which means to lie in wait. The adder in the path, the lion that crouches, the den. Den equals Dan. From the root H352, oaks, rams, trees, power, might, the mighty man. So I tell you, my friends, there's the connection right there in Hosea 14. Therefore shall a tumult arise. Hey, that's the rise of the locust, the rise of the bees, the rise of Dan, of the Vikings, both light and dark, the mighty men. But the trained servants, the 318, those are mighty men that have learnt to walk the humble path, that walk in truth and walk in righteousness, and they don't carry swords no more. They carry the word, man, and it is a power, it is a noise, it is a roar, just like at the Battle of Jericho, and all these other dark forces that are literally carrying weapons and guns and knives. It's just like the Bible said, no weapon forged is going to hurt these 318, and that's why with only 318 men, Abraham went up and just put the all-out whoop-ass on the 4 kings, man. But there's no detail in it, because there's no detail to give, because it probably went down in the blink of an eye where this noise was made. These 318 brothers probably either were chanting, singing, yelling, however it works, man, but booyah, behold, and the wickedness was just gone. They called it a slaughter, but I would say it was just mountains and hills and houses melting and crumbling down in the minds of men, and they could no longer function. They had been cut off. The thorns and the thistles, Hosea 10:8. The high places of Avon, the raven, the sin of Israel, shall be destroyed. The thorn and the thistle shall come up upon their altars, and they shall say to the mountains, cover us, and to the hills, fall on us. And that's exactly what the mighty men say when this day of the Lord come. They run to the hills and to the caves and say, fall on us. And that's part of the curse in Genesis 3:18. That's where it says, the ground will bring forth thorns and thistles, and you will eat of the green herbs of the ground. Once again, the synchronicity, the stacking and racking, the circular nature of events in time. The 4 kings against the 5 kings, that's 9 kings. In the Lord of the Rings and in the Hobbit, it's the 9 kings who all are the Dark Lords supporting Sauron. And I would say that's probably how it is somewhat to this day, which is they landed, the 200 spread out. There's 200 right now surrounding this guy up in Nevada. The fallen sons of God, they spread out, both to the north, to China, to the Americas. But they were mighty men, they were kings, they were men of power, and some were good, a lot of them were bad. A lot of them went around portraying themselves as gods, and I think that's the dark secret, is that in here, you know, when you read the 4 kings and the 5 kings, I'd say out of those 9 kings, hell, at least 5 of them I would say are two-faced gods, where men were worshiping these guys in fear. They were cruelers, those who choose to rule by being the most cruel. All right. The battle of Evermore is upon us, my friends, but it's not as you think. As the waters from above collide with the waters of below, it is a spiritual battle of energies, man, of willpowers and of foundations. Make sure that yours is built on the cornerstone, man. That'll be, I think, part 4, the stone. All right. God bless you. There's Operation End Times, the Two-Faced God. I'm Ben Elstead, your Jedi Warrior.